Hello, this is Frederick Krantz, Director of the Canadian Institute for Jewish Research, with this week's ISRALERT, this week's video report, number 3.0, on issues of concern to Jews and non-Jews in relation to Israel, the Middle East, and Jewish issues. Today we're going to talk about the election, which is going to occur tomorrow, November 6th. By the time you see this, the election may well be over, and what we're going to say today may be a bit dated, but that's the way it is. What can we do? You pays your money and you takes your chances. So we are going to argue, try and understand why, in fact, Romney is the better candidate insofar as Israel and Jewish issues is concerned than the current president, Barack Obama. And that has to do with the fact that Obama now has a track record, didn't have it 4 years ago, and we can see pretty clearly the direction of his Israel and Middle East policies. And essentially that direction is, as he put it recently, to put some daylight between the U.S. and Israel. That's a remarkable way of expressing the relationship, but it coheres with what he's actually done. He's moved the United States much closer in many respects to the Arab world in a number of ways. He's been quite understanding of the so-called Muslim grievances, as we saw in his Cairo speech in 2009. He has put pressure on Israel to negotiate with the Palestinians without putting equal pressure on the Palestinians to negotiate. He's argued that Israel should use the 1949 armistice lines as a basis, which is something new. No president has argued for that. They've argued for the 1967 post-Six-Day War lines. The 1949 lines were called by Abba Eban the Auschwitz lines, so far as negotiations are concerned. He has never factored in a clear vision of Palestinian intransigence to his pressures. The fact that the Palestinians again and again reject possible peace initiatives, from the rejection of partition in 1947-48 to the final, really, rejection of the promise of the Oslo Accords negotiated by Yitzhak Rabin, which essentially now are dead, no longer really having much weight. When it comes to the Arab Spring, the same kind of business, a kind of hands-off attitude. What have we seen? We've seen that we lost an American ally in Mubarak, who was replaced by the very radical Muslim Brotherhood. The same thing in Yemen, by the way. Same thing is happening in Tunisia, where the Americans, having intervened from behind, as he put it, we now see a kind of Muslim Islamist regime emerging, and we see the terrible Benghazi events of a few weeks ago, the 4 American deaths, including an ambassador, and a cover-up on the part of the administration insofar as responsibility for that event is concerned. The Arab Spring generally has been supported and really has developed into a disaster for the Arabs and a very threatening framework for the State of Israel. We see this in Syria, where there's been no intervention, and the Syrian civil war obtains. More and more Islamists are percolating into Syria to fight with the Sunnis against the Alawite regime of Bashar Assad. So we can go on and on. I would make a point about Obama again and again telling us that his great ally in the region is Erdogan, the Prime Minister of Turkey. But we know, of course, that Erdogan is an Islamist with pronounced dictatorial tendencies. So the problem is we have a candidate, Romney, who is clearly very pro-Israel, clearly a friend of Netanyahu from their days at Harvard, a man who visited Israel, took the initiative, would seem to be in many respects a much more supportive president in an age when the United States has to be strong and powerful not only in the region, the Middle East, but in the world in general, in relation to the Middle East, in relation to China, and in relation, of course, to the Russians, who are fishing around in unsettled waters, as Obama is predominantly a domestic president, a kind of neo-isolationist, if you will, in many ways. So, speaking personally, I'm talking in the framework of the CIJR, but I'm speaking personally. It seems to me that on the record, a vote for Romney is a much more pro-Israel vote. Certainly the Israelis themselves feel exactly the same thing. 85% of American Israelis, by the way, support Romney. 71% of Israelis agree that it may well be necessary sooner, perhaps rather than later, to act militarily against the Iranian nuclear genocidal threat, something which, again, Obama has temporized on. He puts his faith in the sanctions, but meanwhile, the Iranians are making more and more. The Iranians are making more and more uranium and getting closer and closer to a bomb. So once again, we're on the eve of this all-important election. We don't know how it will wind up. It's very close. It's 48-48 in the general polls, and different swing states moving in different directions. The momentum seems to be on the side of the Republicans and Romney, but only time will tell, and time is getting very short. So please, as we used to say in the South, vote early and vote frequently. And we will see you next week, and we'll discuss the consequences of the American decision. Thank you, and shalom.